Trash to Hydross. This will consist of 3 platform groups interspersed with 2 colossi. This is the platform group consisting of 1 beast tamer, 2 hate screamers, and 2 spore bats. Our first target is the tamer, Skull, then the 2 screamers, X and Triangle, lastly the charging spore bats, Moon and Star, which are CC'd with Hibernate or Sheep on the pull. The main tank pulls the tamer with minimum threat so that 1, or in this case 2 off-tanks, can easily pick up the screamers and tank them in place, facing them away from the raid. The rest of the raid allows the main tank to pull the tamer up the ramp and face it away since it has a one-shot cleave. Placement needs to be at max range from the screamers to avoid their silence. Once placed, the raid stacks behind Skull, ideally at hunter minimum range. The group needs to be very tightly stacked to avoid the charge from the released spore bats. Around 7 to 10 seconds into the fight, the tamer will use Beast Within, and that will break 1 or both of the spore bats out of CC. They will be big and red and unCCable until the effects wear off. Assigned CCers should watch for the first available chance to reapply CC and prioritize keeping them that way for the rest of the fight. Free bats will charge into the raid. The main tank should do everything they can to establish threat on them without turning the cleaving tamer towards the raid. DPS should do nothing to the bats. Do not dot them. This should keep the bats in the raid and send their charges down to the off-tanks. Once the tamer dies, melee moves down to the screamers. Range stays at max range to continue to avoid the silence from the screamers. The main tank should be at the backside of the range group to maintain threat without breaking CC on the bats and to soak any charges from temporarily freed bats. Once screamers, X, and Triangle are down, the main tank breaks the CC'd bat closest to the range. The raid stacks on the spore bats, and one of the off-tank stays down ramp to soak any charges. Rinse and repeat with the second bat. Pro tip: since the charge will stun and can one-shot a clothy, assign a backup CCer for each spore bat will ensure a quick re-CCing, which can be extremely helpful. Next on the way to Hydross is the Underbog Colossus. They all look the same, but actually have 3 different random skill sets. Initial positioning is the same for all of them. These patrollers turn around just as they reach a change of incline on the floor. They have a very large aggro radius, so only the main tank moves forward on the pull. Range stacks at max range on the same side of the walkway as the tank. Melee moves to position behind the mob. Hunters keep their pets on passive until the skill set can be determined. Watch for a trophic blow, which does damage and reduces strength and stamina. This means the major ability is Frenzy, which increases the mob's damage. Hunters can Tranquil Shot or Druids can Soothe to reduce the effect, or it can be healed through. If you see an initial infection, or after it jumps to a second person, a rampant infection, this needs to be Cure Disease dispelled at once. Each jump increases the damage done and quickly gets to the point of one-shotting someone. Infection means the major ability is Spore Quake, a 30-yard AoE damage for 8 seconds. The range group should be out of range, and the melee group can quickly run out or be healed through depending on raid composition. The last skill set is the worst, foretold by someone in the raid getting a Serpent Shrine Parasite. This will dot the target for 10 seconds before spawning a weak mob that needs to be killed quickly before infecting another player. The major ability then is Acid Geyser, which targets a player, spewing acid on them and anyone else within 8 yards. The targeted player should immediately run directly to the tank. Melee remains where they are, unless they are the targeted player, and range moves away from the target and then to the melee group. The targeted player should return to the main group after Geyser stops. Later targets run through the mob to stand next to the tank during the Geyser. Hunter's pets can be targeted, so if the skill set is Acid Geyser, then pets should stay on passive. Pro tips: Hunters, wait until you know it isn't Geyser before sending your pet into the fight. Priest and Shaman with Cure Disease stay on alert for infection until another skill is used. But that's not the end to these big guys. They pack a surprise at death. Tanks should be ready with their AoE taunt, and the raid should move out of the area because one of 4 things will happen next. A large green toxic pool can show up that everyone needs to get out of quickly, or 2 large adds can spawn which need to be tanked and single targeted, or 8 to 10 small adds which should be gathered together, and once threat is established they can be AoE down. Finally, large blue mushrooms, refreshing mist, can spawn, which replenishes health, mana, and pet happiness. And that's the trash to Hydross. Now for the down and dirty DPS recap. Big greens cleave, don't be in front. Pink ones silence, stay at range. Spore bats charge, CC and have the raid stacked tight. On Colossus, pets start out passive, disease dispellers on watch. If it is atrophic blow and frenzy, tranquil shot or soothe. If it's infection and quake, cure and melee run out. If it is parasite and geysers, kill them when they show up, range to melee, and target to tank. Once Colossus goes down, tanks get ready to taunt, and raid start moving back out of possibly the green toxic pools, or ready to single target the 2 adds, or to wait for tank threat on the group of little adds, then AoE. Or blue mushrooms, and everybody runs back to soak up the love. That's it. Enjoy your walk to Hydross. This has been an IR movie production, written and directed by Zeren. Have a great raid.